Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here today to take you on a journey. What I'd like you to be aware of is that perhaps if you answer this question first, have any of you ever been to prison? Nobody? Okay, let's be more frank. Do any of you have at least a mugshot? I saw one person put their hands up. How about we look at it like this? In life, there are 3 doors which we are going to be presented with, and the choice we make is vital. Which door are you going to enter? The first door is a door of a prison cell, but it's just a holding cell. You're never quite sure, am I going to stay or am I going to leave? The next door is the door into a sentence, and for some of us, it's life. And the third door is the door that we will walk out into freedom. Now we have a classic example in our country, Nelson Mandela. He went into prison at the age of 44. He stayed there for 27 years. And when he came out, he was 71, and he lived for another 24 years. More of his adult life imprisoned than in freedom. Now I ask you this question. You have guaranteed, unless you Jesus Christ, possibly Mother Teresa, maybe Gandhi, have a prison that you are aware of or not. But you're either in a holding cell or you're locked in. And today I'm going to help you to be released into liberation. So let's go on a journey together. Please close your eyes. And I want you to breathe. And I want you to think of anywhere between the ages of 3 and 8. Something possibly has happened. Is it a parent, a mom, or a dad? Have they been a little bit harsh on you? Are there words that have been said that have harmed you? Or have they been so busy working to help provide for you that they're simply not around? They're absent. Has that created neglect in your life? Or are there grandparents that are raising you at that time? And have they just not had the means, whether it's in their presence or in their ability to fund and finance education, or the dream gift that you just want, that toy, that bicycle? But now what's happening? Are you building some form of hurt, a resentment? Are you holding on to some pain? Okay, open your eyes. Now that I've used that personalized story for each of you, I'm going to share a little bit about my own journey, and you can see how I have used one of 2 things. Because Nelson Mandela could have come out of prison armed with vengeance, anger, resentment. He was locked up. He lost out on his family. In fact, his family fell apart because of this. And he could have come out saying, right, now I'm going to make you pay. Or, like he did, he could have come out with what I'm calling a boomerang. Because with a boomerang, you throw it. And instead of harm happening for that person who deserves it, something comes back to you. So did he come out with, I'm going to make you pay, and what would have come back would have been a whole lot more potential chaos and crisis? Or did he come out with, what are we going to do here? Let's just see. Undecided. Or did he come out with the big F-bomb of forgiveness? Because as he threw that out, even though it was undeserving, what came back was reconciliation, unity of a country, and peace. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for what he was willing to do. People sat back going, how is it possible? The country was in turmoil. Really? You want us to forgive for something so undeserving? We've been trapped. We've been abused. We've been persecuted. But yet he was willing to make a stand and say, I'm going to show you how this works. Now, in my personal life, because that's all I can relate to, might be slightly different to what you observed. But I, as a child from 3 to 8 or 9, had been under severe abuse, very traumatized. And my parents were unaware of it because it wasn't immediate family. And as a result, I was neglected. And guess what happens when that is your reality? And maybe you can relate to this. We carry that, and often we become products of our childhood. Not everybody can recalibrate and choose to leave the past in the past and walk forward in natural, organic forgiveness. So there I was at 17, masking, and I was head girl, valedictorian, with every opportunity lying ahead of me. But yet for 21 years I was imprisoned with resentment and anger and a lot of guilt and shame and a lot of unprocessed vengeance, because it just didn't seem fair. How is it that this happened to me? Can you see what's happening? I became a victim. And being a victim is often so appropriate. But there comes a time when there's a choice. Am I going to stay locked in that prison and be minimized? My potential stunted? Or am I going to have the ability and the conviction to rise up above it, like Nelson Mandela did, and forgive? But I wasn't stewarded. I didn't have examples of what forgiveness looked like. And so for 21 years, there I was, the prisoner, the victim, making very poor choices. That by the age of 38, I made that call to my parents, who had no idea what I was hiding. I said, I'm going to rehab. And their worlds came crashing down. How is this possible? But guess what? I had a gift in rehab. And it's based on that quote by Rumi. And Mark Twain said it too. That forgiveness is the fragrance released when a flower is crushed. Think about that. Doesn't seem fair. Destruction creates an essence. Breathe in what that might smell like, because that flower is leaving you with a gift. It's the boomerang. Coming back, you feel, oh, that's beautiful. I had this opportunity in the 12-step program. Step 4, you have to do in order to be set free. It is the forgiveness step. And so often, whether you're an addict, an alcoholic, a workaholic, somebody who has a gambling or pornography addiction, we call it the step 3 tango. 1, 2, 3, relapse. 1, 2, 3, relapse. Why? Because nobody wants to do step 4, where you have to forgive. Please, I'm not forgiving him. He robbed me of my innocence. I'm not forgiving her. She never protected me. I'm not forgiving them. They bullied me on the school grounds. I'm not forgiving that teacher. He told me I will amount to nothing. Well, you know what? We become self-fulfilling prophecies by the words that are spoken to us. But step 4 was my liberation. You have to list the people you resent. How many of us do take inventory? We have to list every single thing they did to us. Yep. It's amazing when you dig deep how you've got a clipboard of evidence, and we're holding that. I had not 1, not 5, not 10. I had 110 people who I resented, and multiple resentments per person. Yes, overachiever, I won the person in rehab who was the most resentful. And my addiction was actually food. Instead of speaking out the words, because often victims are blackmailed, you say this, I'll do this to you. So I was a food addict. But started the binge drinking at 14 and eventually moved on to narcotics in my 20s. And by the grace of God, I would have landed up on the streets like many people I met in rehab. There were convicts, there were hobos, there were executives, there were pediatric surgeons, and then there was me. But step 4, going through all of this with the invitation, are you willing to forgive? Because until you are, you do not have that key that is going to let you out of your prison. Now, my prison wasn't physical, where some of those people had been to jail. My prison was in my head and in my very hardened heart. But like an onion that is being peeled with each new forgiveness, because you work with a sponsor and you're writing in your book and you write for days, weeks, months. Some people are still writing their step 4 years later. But I forgave and I forgave and I forgave. Until one day, 3 months later, I came out of prison, only to realize that my father, my protector, my daddy, had been diagnosed with vascular dementia. And now he was in a prison, locked in his mind. But I had been equipped for a day such as this. And I visited him for 6.5 years. He had no idea who I was. It was so traumatic. So often the family are now in a new prison of grief. There's no closure. How do you cope? But one day, shortly before he went to meet his maker, it was an inner conviction. And I called and asked for a bowl of water to come in. I put it at his feet and I got down on my knees and I said, Daddy, I forgive you for not knowing what I was going through. And I kept a secret because I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to know what your baby girl was being subjected to. And I want you to forgive me for destroying your dreams of what I could have become. And it wasn't your fault, and it wasn't mine either. We just became products of our childhoods and our reality, and you were working so hard to provide, and I was hiding, drowning in quicksand of guilt and shame. And suddenly, that man, locked in his prison of his mind, had a flickering moment of recognition. He knew who I was, and this beautiful fragrance was released, and we got to forgive each other. And I know that whilst he wasn't healed physically of his dementia, he went off completely free. And I walked out of that dementia home a whole, liberated woman. Now let's bring this back to what goes on in work or in your lives at home. I'm having a fight with my husband. Think about your partners. I'm infuriated with what they've done. Now I walk into the boardroom, ready to present, and somebody cuts me off, doesn't let me finish what I'm trying to say, and now I am enraged because I've got this unforgiveness from home, and I either land up shutting them down, not listening, rejecting that maybe their message is important, because the rule of thumb is don't shoot the messenger, receive the message, and the more uncomfortable it makes you feel, the chances are they may be right. But they might be cutting you off because they have a child who's disappointing them at school, not bringing home the marks because the child has had something going on, and they've become a product of their anguish, resentment, guilt, shame, and now the cycle is just going around and around. Now you've cut me off as my boss. Yes, you have the authority, but you've disrespected me. You've harmed my dignity. Now I go home where my marriage is perfectly intact, but now I become impatient. I become short with my spouse. I tell my children I'm not interested, I haven't got time, they're pulling at my hands and my legs and I'm feeling completely overwhelmed. They need me or you to be their parent, to be their guidance, to be their protector. But you're carrying a noise full of unforgiveness in your head or in your heart. Now you have the choice of 3 doors to walk through. Number 1, are you going to go into that holding cell and just stay for the rest of your life in unfulfilled dreams, chaos, and pandemonium? Or are you going to allow yourself to be staying in that prison, locked with a life sentence, never to be released? And in that, you're not releasing your family either, or your work colleagues. Or are you going to get to the door, the cell bars, the prison entrance, and use the key of forgiveness, and not only release the fragrance, but the boomerang effect, that as you forgive, what comes back is unconditional love, freedom, liberation. And I'll end off with this today. When Mandela came out of prison, when the ANC were having their meetings, it is in the movie Invictus, if you haven't seen it, they said to him, take away the Springbok emblem. It is an emblem of apartheid, created by the creators of apartheid. Let's punish them because they hold it sacred and dear. And he said to his comrades, think about this. Take away something that somebody holds dear to their heart, and you are immobilizing conflict. Let them keep something that maybe has harmed you, but that is going to honor them, and see what happens. It is a concept that people can't get over, because they have no right to keep that. And what he did is he walked into that stadium in 1995 with his Springbok jersey on. He had number 6 on the back, which was Francois Pienaar, the team captain. He flew an SAA aeroplane over Ellis Park that said, "Go Bokke." The stadium erupted in every single home, in townships, in villas, on the streets and in hotels. People were watching, glued to the screen. And you know what South Africa did? They brought that trophy home for the first time. It united our country. He was a visionary. He had strategy. Forgiveness is often unfair. It feels unjust, but you're not forgiving those for what they did and making it right. You are forgiving so that you can come out of your prison and that you can walk with freedom. They will meet their maker one day, and they will have to stand before the judge. But let us not be the judge. Let us not be the jury. Let us be the liberators for ourselves, because by doing it, you are setting an example to others. And that's what he did. Some people took what he suggested, and they are living their own liberation. And some could not, literally, and they're stuck in their prison. But I'm inviting you today. This is not a big Nelson Mandela story. Maybe there's no Nobel Peace Prize you're going to win. Maybe it's just that one person. You don't have to have 110. But if you are willing to forgive, knowing that you're not making right what they did, but you are setting yourself from a holding cell or a life sentence into a lifetime of freedom. So don't be scared. Don't think that you are entitling somebody to continue treating you badly. Walk into that boardroom and go, this boss, shame. Probably having issues with his wife. Maybe his children have disappointed him. But I'm going to rise above that because I have forgiven. I'm standing in victory. And he can berate me all he likes. But I am no longer a victim. I'm a victorious person. The woman that stands here before you today is free. And no amount of bullying is ever going to have me back on my knees again. And perhaps I can be an example to others. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, for taking you on a journey. And I really, really hope that you've been activated to be set out and become free from your prison cell, whether it's in your heart or in your mind. Thank you.